Good morning, everyone. Much better. So, good morning. My name is Timothy Jenkins. I am the principal of METEast High School in Camden, New Jersey, which is in the United States. I just want to share my enthusiasm for being here. I want to thank Hanukkah for inviting us, Bart and KPC Group for inviting us to share, things that we do with Big Picture Learning back in the United States, but also for the opportunity to learn. So I am certainly not here just to talk to you. I learned a great deal at Practicum yesterday and at Rihanna's school on Monday. So we've been learning a lot from you guys, and we certainly appreciate you hosting us. So very quickly, I won't talk long, but I would like to share with you a little bit about how I got connected to Big Picture Learning, which might be a little untraditional, and maybe it'll help give you some perspective as it relates to things that you're thinking about and how you are deciding to connect to Big Picture Learning or not. I think our story is pretty unique. So, I said I'm from Camden, New Jersey. In the United States, Camden is probably the third poorest city in the United States. Okay, that's where I'm from. It is also the city that has the second or third highest crime rate in the United States. So there's I call it a great deal of chaos going on all the time. Parents and families and students are really struggling. The educational system is pretty weak and pretty fragile, and there's always unrest, and people are wanting to do better but don't necessarily know how to do better. So not only do I work there, that's how I was raised. That's the situation, that's the environment that I was raised in personally. So what did I do? I was raised in a very, very traditional way. I went to a regular high school. When I was in high school in Camden, I only had one option based on where you would live in Camden. If you lived on the south part, you had one option to go to high school. You had to go to that one particular high school. If you lived on the north side of Camden, there was one high school over there. So you did not have many options. And by the time, and I went through school, I did okay, but I certainly was not a great student. So by the time I graduated high school, I went on to college, and I decided that I personally wanted to try to help the city of Camden because everybody is struggling. So I went to college, I became a teacher, a regular English teacher, because when I was in high school, I did not learn how to write really well. So in college, after university, I struggled to learn how to write. I became a teacher. I was doing pretty well as a teacher, and at the same time that I became a teacher and I was starting to do well, my superintendent, the head of our schools, I believe she met Elliot somewhere at a conference, so she heard about Big Picture Learning. So at a time where there were only 2 high schools in our city, there were some others around, but really if you lived in a city, there were only 2 options. She heard about Big Picture Learning and wanted to offer the city of Camden or students more educational options, because those 2 large schools that had over 1,000 students each were not working. They were actually the 2 lowest performing schools in our entire state. So out of 317 schools, the 2 lowest performing schools in the entire state was where I lived. So, superintendent connected with Elliot, connected with Big Picture Learning, and things sort of took off. For reasons I still don't know or understand, they selected me to be the principal. I was 26 years old. I was a teacher, and I had no idea how to be a principal of a school. I had literally no idea. So I went from meeting with the superintendent to, literally on a Friday, she said, come to my office. I was a little nervous. I didn't know her. She said, come. She said, do you want to be a principal? I said, okay, yes. Yeah, I think. So she gave me a homework assignment. I went home. I did it very, very quickly, honestly, not knowing what was going on. And she called on Monday. She said, do you have your homework? I'll tell you. To do the assignment, she asked me to write something. She gave me a folder, a packet of information about big picture learning. She said, here, write something. I said, write what? She said, write anything. So I was an English teacher, so I wrote an essay. The title of my essay was, I wrote it in two parts. One was why I felt big picture learning was a good fit for the city of Camden. The other part was why I felt I was the best person for the job. So I wrote this essay, I did it that weekend, but she had told me I had 2 weeks, right? So I go to work on Monday, teaching my class, she calls me. I'm nervous. Why is the superintendent calling me again? She says, do you have your assignment? I said, you told me I had 2 weeks. She said, that's not what I asked you. Do you have your assignment? And I said, yes. So I sent it to her, and that was on Monday. 2 days later, Elliot called me and said, hey, I hear you're going to be the principal. I said, okay, I'm going to be a principal. So, fast forward a little bit. We started the school very, very humbly. I began my training, and for about a year it was just me to learn, to figure out. There were no other big picture learning schools in New Jersey. There were actually no big picture learning schools in our region, so to speak. So there was a lot to learn, there was a lot to figure out. My training began in Providence. So I went to Providence without knowing anything except the things that were in that folder. I went to Providence and I was there for a week. I didn't know what the heck was going on. So they sat me in a black box theater, a room like this, and they're telling you all of this information. There's the 3 R's, rigor, relevance, relationships. What's that? Personalization, learning plans. What's that? Exhibitions are good. What's that? I'm just trying to figure out all of these things. And honestly, it did not make sense to me because where I come from in Camden, there was only one option, just a very, very, very traditional school. So it took me literally 3 days to try to figure out or to understand how I can make big picture learning work in Camden. Because the first 2 days I was in Providence, they kept us in a black box theater, just like this, where we were just with each other principals from around the country trying to open up schools. So all I knew was that there were a group of adults and we were all trying to figure this stuff out. What changed for me is when they actually let us go out into the schools. Once we start talking to students, once we start interacting with students, I started asking questions. What are you doing? What do you like? How is this school different from other schools? And you started to hear, oh wow, that makes a difference. Or a student will say, I used to get in trouble, but now I don't. Okay, in Camden, everybody gets in trouble. So you just try to figure out how to make sense of what people are, what they were doing in Providence. So by the 3rd day, I said, okay, this can work. By the time I left on that Friday, I was really, really, really hooked. And I left Providence that week truly feeling like I have to make it work. There are no other schools like this in New Jersey. There are no other schools like this around in our area. And this could be something really, really, really great for our students. So I put that burden on my shoulder to try to create something great for students in Camden because I saw how it worked in Camden. And again, it was not until I started really interacting with students. And so now, fast forward 9 years, this is my 10th year as a principal. We started out with just 4 teachers, me and 40 students, I believe. Now we have 20 teachers, 160 students, And we're actually working to expand. One day, I told somebody yesterday, I'm going to try, one of my goals is to create a building the way that you guys have your buildings, because your buildings are phenomenal. They're great spaces and places for students to come, and I know your students feel good. But if you come to Camden, some of you have been to our school. Our school is old and cold and not the most, it isn't the nicest looking place, but it truly is a place where students feel valued, where students care about each other, and where they're both, the environment inside of the school is great, but also students are leaving our school, going out into the community and doing meaningful things. So, that's a little bit about me. I shared with you that it did not connect for me until I started talking to students, talking with students, asking a bunch of questions to students, because the first 2 days I kind of tuned this guy out. He's saying all of this stuff. He writes books, so he talks a lot. So, but you can't fake. Students don't fake. If I ask, how are you doing? They're going to tell you. So, I'm going to stop talking. At this point, we've had our school for 10 years. We have a lot of visitors all the time. I don't talk, as the principal, I don't talk very much. As visitors come in, you'll have one of our students to greet them, to welcome them, to give them tours, talk about what they learned. I kind of step in the background. I don't like to be on Twitter and all of that stuff. So what I'm going to do now is introduce you to a couple of our students who will tell you a little bit about themselves. They will tell you their stories, and you will see just how much big picture learning has impacted them. So I'm going to introduce 2 students, but I have 160 students who could be here telling you something very unique and specific about them and why they love or care about big picture learning. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Miss Roni Liu.
Good morning, guys. I'm going to be real brief, and I'll try not to talk too quick. So, my name is Roni Liu. I am a senior at METEast High School in Camden, New Jersey. I have lived in Camden for 13 years, but I also lived in various cities, for example, Chicago and Milwaukee, also in the United States. I have 2 interests. So the first is helping teenagers in high school look for a job to support their families and financial needs or themselves. And my second interest is to become a physical therapist. I discovered this passion when I had my internship with Ms. Kim. She was assisting injured patients by doing many exercises that looked easy but are difficult to do. Working with her has been inspirational to me. I have learned to connect deeply with an interest that has personally affected me. So 2 years ago, my grandma was injured and she was in the hospital for a couple months, and after that, the doctor decided to move her to, give her physical therapy. In 8th grade, I heard about METEast High School from Mr. Jenkins at a high school convention. He brought 2 students with him and they presented a PowerPoint. What grabbed my attention was how positive and unique the education portrayed itself. Therefore, I decided to separate myself from people that I had been with and choose a school that could potentially be right for me. One aspect that I love about METEast is constantly building the relationships throughout the school. In the past several projects that I've done, I made connection with students. For example, the first project I did was called the Freshman Fusion. The upperclassmen helped me discover each of the freshman students' personal qualities. I displayed their work as a mural in my classroom so that we could get to know them. As a school, we are a family unit. The most important relationships I have are with my advisory. Without having this small group, I would not be able to strive on my own. But to end this, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. I will take the culture of the Netherlands back home and share it with my school. This experience has broadened my horizon and allowed me to see big picture from another perspective. So now, I would like to introduce you, Dennis Alicia.
Good morning, everyone. As Ronnie said, my name is Dennis Alicia. I am a proud product of METEast High School in Camden, New Jersey. And I'm gonna start off by saying, you guys look lovely today. And my principal has been begging me to give him a shout out. So you look lovely as well, sir. He's been bugging me about that since I started writing my speech. I would also like to thank Ms. Hanukkah and Bart for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you guys. And now I'm going to let you know a little bit about me, just like Roni and Mr. Jenkins here. For example, how I got into, like, what I like about METEast, what I appreciate about METEast, my school, and also internships I've acquired over the years. So, to be honest, the truth, I'm gonna tell you the truth, I'm about to say 60% of the reason why I really wanted to come to METEast, but 90% of the reason why I wanted to go to METEast was because I was promised 3 days of school out of the week. But I was sadly mistaken. As we all know, the other 2 days of the week were internship days, get a job, and I have to admit I wasn't too happy about that at all. I was like, what did I get myself into? So they sat me down, they explained to me the process, and I love the idea of the internship process. And that's really what caught my attention. The second thing was, it was project-based learning. I am a student that learns through projects. I was in a middle school before, I was in a regular middle school, and they use traditional tactics to teach students, and I wasn't very good with that method. I would just sit there and just like, they'll talk, and I'm like, huh? What? I couldn't understand much. So at METEast, we didn't know. I get the opportunity to learn through projects, and that's the way I like to do it. That's the way I learn. That's the way I understand. Oh, well, actually, I'm gonna give you an example of one of the projects that I just could not understand. The teacher would teach, they would sit down privately with me, and I just couldn't learn it. For example, I was studying the brain, and I couldn't learn the different parts of the brain, what they were for. So what I did was, I decided, what the opportunity that METEast gave me was, I decided to build a sculpture of the brain and label each part, color the different parts of the brain. And that's how I learned. That's what I call learning through projects. That's the way I think everyone should learn, if you just can't sit in the class and just write and take notes. So there's that. Okay, so yeah, 3 years ago, I was probably one of the shyest students you'll ever meet in your life, which is, as you see, I'm standing here, completely shy. But METEast wasn't really okay with that. So what they did was, my freshman year, I had to do exhibitions, 4 of them. So through exhibitions and with the help of my teachers, I slowly, was breaking out of my shell. So I was able to, just interact with people, something I couldn't do before. 3 years ago, I probably would have been like hiding in one of these classrooms and like in the bathroom, pretending I fainted or something, just so I wouldn't stand up here. So that's something that I really appreciated about METEast. The internship process. That's something that I really appreciated about METEast. That's in another school, in another traditional school, I wouldn't get the opportunity to go out and experience the real world. I wouldn't be able, again, to learn through projects. So I go out internships. I go out of internships and I interact with different people all the time. So right now my first internship that I tried was photography. After a couple of weeks in the photography industry, I found out it wasn't really a career for me, more as a hobby. So I can do that as a side job. Then after a couple interviews with welders, which is another interest I had, I want to do underwater welding. After a couple of interviews with welders, I was like, you can have that. That's a little too dangerous for me. I'm not into it anymore. Then that brings me to my current internship. I interned with the technology Technician, yes, for the Camden district. And what we basically do is just go around fixing computers, networking, and teaching people about the technology around them. Okay, so what I've learned was, a lot of what I've learned is mainly software-wise, so installing, taking programs out, ghosting, which is, just reset the whole computer. And so that's a little bit about that. Okay, so yeah, so thanks to the internship process, I have been able to figure out what I want to do with my future. Because if I was in a regular school, in a regular high school, I would probably still try to be a photographer, not knowing that that's not what I want to do with my life. And if it wasn't photography, I would have gone into welding. Also something I wouldn't want to do with, as a career. So after those two experiences, that brought me into the technology industry. That's all three are passions of mine, but thanks to the METEast, thanks to the big picture, I was able to figure out what exactly I wanted to do and go through college and, not having issues with having to switch majors and, losing years pretty much and losing money. So yeah, those are a couple things that have shaped my future as a student. It has shaped my character because, again, I would not be able to stand up here. So those are just a few things about me.